Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode, an end of the session episode of From the District with State Representative Suzanne Weber. Representative, you are home in one piece.
Yes, and it's a couple days early even,
I know.
because Sunny Day usually, it's 35 days, and it could have gone until midnight next Monday, the 7th.
Mhm.
And we managed to get it done more quickly. The thing that would have taken the time that would have kept us there until midnight on Monday night was the budget bills. And one budget bill was 193 pages long, and we opted not to have the reading of the bills anymore.
Yeah. I know there was some kind of last minute negotiations and just on your guys making sure no extra bills popped up.
Right. I will say that Speaker Rayfield was not opposed to reading bills. I've read some news articles that have not been favorable to that. But Speaker Rayfield was just fine with us reading the bills all through the session. That was never a contentious issue.
Right.
It was an issue when it started looking like if we continued to do it, though, we would be there for half of forever and then tomorrow too. So
right. It was really interesting watching the session this time around. For those folks who don't know, former Speaker Tina Kotek is running for governor, so she resigned from the legislature in order to spend more time doing that, because it really is a full-time job. Same reason that former Senator Betsy Johnson resigned from the legislature, running for governor.
And Christine Drazan also.
Yep, former House Leader Christine Drazan also resigned from the legislature. It's just Oregon's not a small state. It is a geographically large state, and so in order to get where you need to get, plus actually represent your constituents, boy, that's tough.
And plus, these elections that these people are running for are expensive propositions. And people have to know that while you're in session, while you're making these decisions and debating these issues, you cannot be raising money for your campaign, because you're not there to campaign. You're there to legislate.
Right.
And that's the purpose. And so it didn't work out for those folks to be there.
Right. We did have a few folks wanting to send in a check, and we said, go ahead and hold that for you for your upcoming campaign. And we said that's against House rules. Folks in the Senate can do it. There are some folks in the Senate who do raise money during the session. That is not against the Senate rules, but it is against the House rules.
Right. It is.
So if you went to your website, your campaign website, during the session and clicked the donate button, you were taken to a nice little landing page that said, per House rules, we cannot accept any donations right now. Come talk to us soon. But,
right.
It was really interesting as watching the relationship that everybody had with Speaker Rayfield was actually a pretty positive one. Certainly you didn't agree with him all the time. You probably didn't agree with him very much at all. But
he came to the caucus. He asked to come and address our caucus, because we met every day for at least an hour to discuss the bills and what was coming forward and how it was coming forward. And he requested an opportunity to come and talk to us. And he spent almost an hour, answering our questions, talking to us, walking us through his thought processes. And it was very educational as to how he thinks and how he approached managing the legislature this term. And I can't say anything bad about him. He kept all of his promises.
Well, and that's just the thing, is that certainly you probably don't agree with him very much, but you knew when he said something, even if you disagreed with him saying with his ideas or disagreed with his process, you knew he was being honest about what he was saying. And quite frankly, this just couldn't be said the same about Speaker Kotek. She flat out broke her promises a number of times, and she got called up by the Oregonian, got called up by fellow Democrats.
And she'll be called up for a long time for doing that. The thing that I appreciated about Speaker Rayfield is that we could talk with him candidly about things we did not like that he was doing. And he had some of those things he had no idea, and he changed his method of operation.
Yeah. So it was really, for me as a staffer, a lot more refreshing to know that when we reached out to the Speaker's office that we were getting the truth. Or if they couldn't tell us, to just say, we're not going to tell you. I mean, that was fine. It was
And
really
there was a real good dialogue between our leader, Vicky Breeze Iverson, and Rayfield also.
right.
Because, you know, we had new leadership, just like the majority had new leadership and the House had new leadership.
Mhm.
So we all came in there to a whole group of new people that had ideas about how they wanted to do things. And I thought they did very well.
Right. And I think Leader Fahey as well. She's also chair of the Housing Committee, which you sit on, and
Yes.
Was always open to at least hearing ideas, giving things a hearing. We certainly didn't agree with her very often, but
No, but
at least being able, I mean, it really is a step in the right direction when you're not lied to and you're listened to, even if
Yes.
it goes nowhere. And because it was, I can tell you, I was in the building. I wasn't in the building the short session, but I was in the building last time, and it was one of the most. I've been in Oregon politics a long time. It was the most contentious air that I've ever felt in that building, and it wasn't fun. It was
No.
awful. It was really unpleasant.
no, and I will tell you that it started out with that same sort of feeling. Now,
Mhm.
I'm also going to say that just because we were friendlier to each other didn't mean that we were able to get our point across about what the common sense solutions were to some of these challenges that were in some of these bills,
Right.
because there was still voting along party lines. And until we are able to build a bigger base so that we can be closer to the majority or the majority, we are going to have that problem. And people say, oh, well, you know, you didn't fight hard enough. You can't fight against that ending ballot, because those people are going to vote how they are, how they think is right, and so are we. We just don't have enough to carry it.
But one of the interesting things about this session, really, I thought, and OPB had a really interesting article, and Willamette Week did too, was Eugene Representative Marty Wilde. He called out the majority. Now, he also at the end pointed out that Speaker Rayfield certainly was trying to make things better, but made it very clear that in those caucus meetings, they were being threatened if they didn't vote the way they were told to. And it was very interesting this session. I saw a few more folks on the Democratic side joining you on some of these votes, that they seem to be able to vote their conscience a little bit more instead of being afraid that they were going to get primaried or having their chairmanship taken away. It was just a lot better. So,
and the other thing is, you know, we have bills that maybe are not scheduled, but they can be pulled up for a vote.
mhm.
And Rep. Wilde was very aggressive about pulling up some of these bills that didn't get passed and possibly bringing them back to life. And some of those bills were bills that were really important to us.
Right. It was an interesting session. So our usually our get together here is about half an hour, 45 minutes. It's probably going to be a bit longer because it is an end of the session kind of review. We're going to go through some of the bills that you sponsored that passed. There was a nice handful of them that you were able to get to the finish line. There was, I want to talk about some bills that you sponsored
Yes.
that failed did not get a vote, or if they have
Yes,
failed. And then I want to talk about
some good bills
Yeah.
that could have really made a difference.
Yeah. And then I want to talk about a few bills that were really in the news. And
You're breaking up on my end, so I hope that you're recording.
I am recording, so you're not breaking up on my end. So I hope
Okay.
it's not me. I'm not getting that your
Oh, good.
connection is unstable thing. So I don't know who it is.
Okay, I'm not either, but
Okay, well, we'll go on. At the end, I want to just talk about 4 bills that were in the news a lot, and just kind of talk about how you voted, what was your thought process, and where you go. But let's start, as I always like to do. Let's start about the good stuff. The bills you sponsored that passed. A few here we talked about before a lot, so we're just going to touch on them. First one of those is House Bill 4053, which is going to direct ODOT to
yes,
do a study on Highway 6.
a
It
thorough
passed
study.
a thorough study. I will say, as of now, it's been signed by the Speaker, signed by the Senate President, has not yet been signed by the Governor. It passed unanimously from the
Yes.
House and the Senate. So I would be really shocked if the Governor didn't sign it. But this is just where the work begins, right?
Yes, because we have no idea how much ultimately this is going to cost. If there's
Right.
even that much money in the world.
Right.
But, and you know, we have to be careful too when we call this, a corridor that people could die on, because people are still using that road every single day, successfully traveling it. If they live here and work in Portland, vice versa. Our cow chow is coming in and our lumber's going out. And so that is actively being used. Spring vacation is coming up. We're going to have people that are going to be coming here to the beach and that are going to be taking that road. And I don't want them to think that it is a death trap. It has serious deficiencies that need to be corrected.
Right.
And I look at Highway 30 and up along the Columbia and how that was for years and years and years, and how that has been made a more safe thoroughfare. That's what we have to do.
Right. So certainly once we get that list, we can then begin working with our federal partners, and then of course ODOT, like, okay, here's the list. How are we going to fix this? Because it's going to be expensive. But where we're at now,
Yep.
that bill has passed. It's on its way to the Governor. And I will say, folks who might have heard, oh, the Governor hasn't signed it. The Governor has not signed it very much at all. So don't get
Right,
too.
she hasn't.
She has some. She has quite a bit of time yet before it becomes law. If she doesn't veto or sign it after a certain amount of time, it becomes law without her signature. So that is where that one is. Another one that you were sponsored. It was a bipartisan sponsorship with Representative Nathanson out of Eugene.
Yes.
You were very close with her for quite a while before the session began. In the interim,
Yeah.
Addressing, we talked about this one, so we won't talk too much about it, addressing standardized testing. So.
Yeah, and that was also very successful. But once again, we're looking at what kind of standardized tests we're giving in school districts, how much they cost, how much time they're taking. There was another bill that was also related to standardized testing that came from the Senate. And that bill was a bill to, once again, ask to be exempted from it on a federal level. And we have, that bill has gone through the legislature several times. And the federal officials have not seen the way through to exempt us from standardized testing at this time. So that probably won't go anywhere. But what will go someplace is taking an inventory of what we are actually doing. I mean, that's what's important, is what are we doing? And a lot of people said that they really felt passionate about the fact that our Department of Education was not doing this already. And why should we have to have a bill that specified this? And that was something that came through a lot, especially at the end, is like um, Oregon Health and Oregon Education. They have a lot of money that goes into their coffers in order to accomplish what they think is important to accomplish. However, are they doing everything that they can to make sure that our kids are successful?
Right. And I think that was a real frustration is like, why do we need a bill for this? And it's important to
Yes.
remember, we're not just talking about state standardized testing. I heard some people say, you guys don't know? So in the state that gives these tests, it's not just the state, the local districts do as well.
Well, the thing to remember too is that the state goes out to get a lot of reports on a lot of issues. But a lot of times, those reports that they're asking for are just checking a box next to a sentence. And so they tell you that they are surveying and paying attention to that, but it's just a yes or no answer. True or false? Are you doing it? Are you not doing it? Not what are you doing and to what extent are you doing it? Same thing goes for our talented and gifted programs. That's just a check off on a list that they get. And so also worked on that, but we haven't come forward with any kind of a bill that would reflect that part of our education at this point in time.
Well, you only have 35 days. And I think,
Yes,
as you've said numerous times,
that's the issue. That's the issue that we talked about last time. This is 35 days. We're supposed to take it, small issues. We're supposed to tweak things that we might have gotten wrong on the last one, and we're supposed to pass a budget.
right. And that's the great thing I think about these study bills that you put forward is they were a relatively small bill to tee up future legislation when you get the results so that you can make the bigger changes in the state that need to happen in those longer sessions. So that bill passed. It was not unanimous. Honestly, it was a very bipartisan bill. It shows kind of your independent streak. You joined a number of Democrats, particularly, certainly some number of Republicans too. But
well, I also joined the Democrats in another issue, and that was the teacher shortage that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to get more people into the. Hang on one second.
You're a popular person, Representative.
Okay. So, so anyway, I was saying that how do we make it so that teaching is once again an attractive profession? You know, and you hear me say this all the time too. You know, our kids are our biggest natural resource. We have to have people in there to be able to teach them so that they can carry on. And well, people are not going into the profession.
I think one of these bills,
substitutes.
What we hear a ton about with these from some teachers is all I do is teach to a test. I'm told exactly what it has to be and make sure that my kids test and this way and pass this. It's not an attractive thing to have to do. So hopefully this is a bill that will add to that, making it that you're not saying that you're not going to test. That's not at all what you're saying. Is that if you're gonna test, make sure that you're testing for a good reason and not just testing for testing's sake.
Yes, and the other thing is that your test results are going to go towards an end. You're going to find out what they are. You're going to find out what your deficiencies are. You're going to be able to teach the children better as to what they need to be able to come up to whatever standards those tests say they have to have.
Right. Okay, let's move on to a few others that we really haven't talked much about, just because they were kind of in limbo. But House Bill 4074 is going to require employees of or workers of marijuana shops or licensees or grow facilities to report human trafficking to law enforcement and to OLCC. certainly the people of Oregon spoke that they wanted recreational marijuana available, but just like anything, when you create a policy that large, it's going to have some unintended consequences. So talk about this bill a little bit that you sponsored.
Well, we've had, the Southern Oregon is supposed to be the place where marijuana grows the best. And so for a long, long time, even before marijuana was legal in the state, there were many illegal grows down in that area. Well, at the present time, it's taking a lot of laborers that are being held captive in these facilities in order to process this. That's human trafficking. We're seeing that also move north up into the Portland area and Columbia County and Clatsop County. And so human beings are being exploited, and they may not be citizens of our country legally here, but that doesn't mean that they should be exploited for those reasons. And the folks who are dealing in the marijuana, that grow, the sell, they need to be just as responsible as the school principal and the school nurse and the hospital for seeing these people and getting them help. Because, we're hearing about people that are being held captive in warehouses in substandard conditions and fed dog food and then not paid the amount of money that they were promised in order to do the job. That can't happen.
Right. Now, of course, what you're not going to stop this in is the unlicensed facilities. The unlicensed facilities, they're already breaking the law. But unfortunately, there are still some of the licensed facilities.
There are licensed facilities who are also operating under those same conditions.
Right. You sponsored this with Representative Morgan, a conservative Republican, as well as Representative Marsh, Pam Marsh, a very liberal Democrat from Ashland.
Right.
This is not a partisan issue. This is this is again
No,
showing.
This is the human condition that we have to guard against being exploited.
Right. So that bill did pass. Again, we have not gotten that back from the governor yet, but hope that it certainly will be. Another one that you joined Representative Hayden on was establishing a program that would have OHA, Oregon Health Authority, provide dental care, oral care.
Dental care for veterans.
Yeah, to low-income veterans.
Right. And we've got to be able to reach out to them because a lot of veterans are not, they're not getting dental care, and dental care is so important to their health. Mm-hmm. If they're suffering from PTSD and they're not taking care of themselves, they're not getting that help. They're making their health conditions even worse. Your teeth are connected to your heart. You don't take care of your teeth, you're going to have heart disease. What are we allowing to happen to the finest people, the generation that's protected us for all this time?
Right,
and it's most likely going to be difficult to reach all of them, to tell them what if they can avail themselves of. However, it is there, and it is a good start, and it's one more way that we can take care of our veterans.
In your district, we have a pretty darn high per capita. I don't know where we rank, but per capita of low income veterans, yes, and homeless veterans,
yes,
really big in your district. So this makes total sense that you would be spearheading this. It did pass the Senate, but we are still waiting for signatures. That actual one that hasn't been signed by the speaker or the president yet, so it hasn't officially made its way to the governor. But it was one of those last minute, get this thing done real quick because it's important. So I was very glad to see that. House Bill 41. Go ahead.
Say get it done quickly. It's not like that, because we did talk a lot about that. I said, it isn't, we didn't get it, we got it done quickly, but it was
Yeah.
something that had a lot of discussion behind it. And selling a lot of people on that concept too.
Right. When I say got it done quickly, forgive me. The bill had a lot of things that had to get worked out. It could have died in committee, but they suspended the rules on the last day to read it for a second and third time.
Yes,
I don't want to get too deep into everything, but usually you have a first reading. The bill's read for the first time, it goes to a committee, it comes out of the committee, it's read for a second time, then the next day it's read for a third time and voted on. You have to suspend the rules in order to read it the second and third time the same day. Just part of how that works. 4103, which near and dear to my heart, House Bill 4103, increases the penalty for folks who practice real estate without a license. I'm in the real estate industry, so just a fair disclosure there. But that is a big issue, particularly on our eastern side and our southern side.
Yes, because we have real estate people coming and selling things in our state and depriving our citizens of commissions when all they would have had to have done was paid a $500 license fee, and they could have been doing it legally.
Right. And unfortunately, what we have is what the original fee was $100. The average, when you have a commission that's going to be $10,000, you say, you know what, I'll pay that fee. That's all right. That's just cost of doing business. This bumped it up to the first time $1,000, second time $2,500, third time $5,000. So
there is a hefty fine involved in that.
Right.
But I think it should be enough to encourage those folks to look into it a little deeper and not take the chance of being caught and doing what they're doing.
And you did join, there are three realtors who are in the assembly. Leader Breeze Iverson is a licensed agent, Representative Zika and Representative Meek, Democrats and Republicans, again, finding a solution to a problem in a bipartisan way. So that did pass and is off to the governor. 4106. House Bill 4106, I think really important to rural communities, rural healthcare communities, would allow surgical techs who have completed an apprenticeship program to practice. So talk a little bit about that and how it's going to affect our district.
It's like we talk about having a teacher shortage. I mean, look at what has happened over the last 2 years, and look at our healthcare, the health of our healthcare staff. And we need people in that area. And this will give people the opportunity to get paid internships in hospitals so that we can have those people in their hospitals for the care, because they definitely have the education. They just need the experience that goes with it.
And how important is that for rural communities, especially?
Extremely important, because I was talking to someone about contract nurses, people coming in here, especially from other places, and getting $100 an hour at this point in time to be able to come in and fill these shifts. That's awfully expensive for our healthcare systems to be able to support. That's one of the reasons why our two of our care facilities, Kilch's House and Nehalem Bay, had to close, is they didn't have the staff to be able to come in there, the licensed staff, to be able to care for these people. This would give those folks that opportunity to come in and be able to work for a living wage, because a nurse's salary is a living wage, and to know that that they would have a place here, they would have a good job, they would have experience, and our citizens would have good health care.
That definitely a great bill for rural Oregon. And kind of piggyback on that, we go to House Bill 4142, which would increase, which will increase
Yes,
the crime of assault of a
right.
person working in a hospital to third degree assault. So, talk a little bit about that and your thought on that.
Um, that is that is extremely important because we were really amazed to hear the number of people working in hospitals and in care facilities who have been attacked and harmed because of patients, some with drug issues, some with mental health issues, some with some criminal issues that we really don't want to know about, attacking our hospital personnel and breaking bones
Hmm.
and harming them, and without any kind of real penalty for doing this. And so it became increasingly important to increase that penalty so that once again, our hospital personnel can feel that they are safe and that there will be repercussions for the actions of the person who has gone off the rails.
And I will say, I saw you looking at me a little offhandedly, and I understand that why, because I put that on the wrong list. That is actually one of the bills. It's a good a good segue. That's one of the bills that did not pass. It was left on the
Are you
president.
sure?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now at the
Oh,
president's
yes, we
desk
had a
upon
bill.
adjournment.
Yeah,
Yes, so I apologize. So that is a bill. So that is actually a great segue. Oh, you've dropped me. Oh dear, it's just going off the rails here. This is what we get for doing this on a Sunday.
you know what? Martin isn't here. And so there's no barking dog. And I'm not
Oh.
baking brownies. So I think we're doing okay, Alan.
Okay, well then we're all right then. So that is a segue. We are segueing down to some of the bills that you sponsored that unfortunately did not pass. So that is one bill that I'm very disappointed because, especially in community hospitals. So in Tillamook,
Exactly.
that is a community hospital. They don't get to say, we're not going to treat you because you have a
Right.
mental illness or because you're aggressive. They have to treat them. And
Yes, but they don't necessarily have the staff. They don't have the
I,
staff that's trained to be able to do that. And then there are the unintended consequences of violent people with violent natures.
right. So let's talk a little bit and continue talking about some of the bills that you sponsored, but unfortunately did not pass. And let's continue on with House Bill 4022, which would have made it so that school boards posted their curriculum on their website. I've got a small child, and I work hard to find out what he's learning, and it takes me some work to find out what the curriculum is.
Well, true. And I had someone contact me about the critical race theory
Mhm.
and that being taught in our state. And so I went on a search mission to find out if it was part of our curriculum. And you had to go to the Oregon Department of Education, and then you had to start delving into all of this. And it was like going down this hole. Alice was accompanying me, and we could not find anything like that.
Mhm.
And and I think that this would have made it so much easier for parents to be able to know the depth and the breadth of what their children were supposed to be learning. And I think it would have taken a lot of fear out of parents who felt that some of the things that were being taught were not necessarily appropriate. But this didn't get to go anyplace, but it will in the future. It's going to be brought forward again
It seems like a
because it would be every school district has their curriculum. It would be easy to be able to post that curriculum and then be able to update it.
it made especially with all of I mean, even in our own school district, there's so much consternation right now, and this seems like an opportunity for us to say to all the school boards, just post what you're teaching. just post it all, because what we're hearing is a lot of people believing that things are being taught in school that aren't being taught in school. And I think there's maybe some things that are being taught in school that maybe folks wouldn't like, but you
Oh,
get to put
I
it,
know there are.
but you can put it all up on the website and just air it out and let's have a conversation about it. So it was disappointing that that got turned into such a political thing when it was really designed to take the politicization out of education as much as it possibly could. So disappointing that that bill didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, we talked long and hard on that, on, you know, how valid that would be, especially in today's day and age about, you know, and people do have a fear of what their children are being taught.
Understandable. We love our kids.
Well, yes.
So
Well, then you, and you know, then I hear from folks that kids come home from school and they express what they're learning and what they've done and what kind of questions they have to ask their parents, and you think, what is going on? How can this be? This is not right.
Right. So this was an opportunity to stop that, and
yeah, it is
fortunate that that bill didn't go anywhere this time, but take another stab at it next time. House Bill 4028, staying on the education side, would have directed the State Board of Education to review annually education standards with the state. And I know this was a big thing for you, especially last session, about lowering education standards. This bill didn't go anywhere, unfortunately.
This didn't go anywhere, and we still have no graduation requirements for our students. I mean, how can we do that?
Right.
How is that allowing kids to get into college if we don't even know what they have passed and what they haven't passed, what their proficiencies and their deficiencies are?
Well, certainly not helping them.
No, it's not helping our kids at all.
Right. And you know, when I went to college and I had to take a remedial math class, and I'll be the first one to say I'm terrible at math. I remember my math teacher said, you won't always be able to carry a calculator in your pocket. Well, but
yes.
You know, that was something that was really difficult for me because I graduated, I passed all my math classes. I graduated, and when I got to college, I was not prepared. I was not prepared for basic math.
And yes, and you have no idea how many students come out of high school and their proficiency at reading and math is adequate, passing, but then there are other things like biology and chemistry. And I am sure that if you're a chemistry tutor, you can make bucks just to be able to get high school kids ready for college chemistry.
Right. Let's talk about HB 4081. This is a kind of a controversial one. Again, it did get passed out of the healthcare committee, but got lost in the Ways and Means shuffle. Would have required that pharmacists who dispense opioid prescriptions also have, and forgive me for, I'm not a pharmacist, naloxone or a similar drug, the type of drug that
it's the type of drug you give someone who's experiencing an overdose.
Right. And our community unfortunately has a history of some real big opioid issues.
Right. And what this would have done is if you are getting oxycodone or anything with fentanyl base or anything like that, you would also have the I can't think of what the name of it is. Like you took, I was going to say it just before you said it, but anyway, there are brand names of this that policemen carry with them and save people's lives. But it would give someone in someone's home, if it was someone who was elderly or too young and taken some medication that they shouldn't have without clearly understanding, what would happen to them, it would give them the power to be able to reverse that action with this medication.
Thank you, Google. It's Narcan.
Narcan.
Commonly known as
Yes, thank you,
Narcan.
Google.
That's the brand. That's the brand name that
Yes.
most of us know is Narcan.
But
So
the brand name was not in the bill. That
No,
was taken out of
no.
the bill. It was just the chemical name.
right, the
And-
actual, and I thought that was a pretty reasonable bill. I think, quite honestly, most pharmacies do carry this, but there are some who don't, especially in the more rural pharmacies where you don't have a Walgreens on one corner and a CVS on the other corner.
Right.
You have, like maybe down in Lake County where they have one pharmacy for the entire county, and that's not a small county. So
And there are organizations who work specifically to put this out there so that the availability will be there for the pharmacists to be able to give to the or provide for the people who are also getting those drugs.
right.
So there are people that realize that it could be saving lives.
Right. Well, hopefully, it won't be a law. Hopefully, a lot of the pharmacists will take it on their own volition to make sure that
Right.
they still have that available to them. Another one this one just blows my mind, and I know we had to about peel Katie off the ceiling when this one didn't pass. HB 4082, which
4082.
yeah, would have directed a
And we
county
tried
governing
again.
body. Yeah, it would
We
have.
tried again just
we-
before the end of the session to pull that
Yeah.
up and get that passed because
Yeah.
it's so important.
Yes. So
We have fire departments that are
Whoa, whoa,
suffering
whoa,
out
whoa,
there.
Pause,
Oh.
pause.
Yes, I got
Let's
a
tell
little
the folks
drink.
what this bill is. This is a bill that would have each county designate a person to ensure interment of unclaimed human remains of
Oh.
a veteran, a spouse.
That's 4082.
Yeah,
I was talking about,
there's two of them that were
back
bad.
to-
Two of them that were really bad, but then they were kind of the same sort of thing. So unfortunately, there are a lot of veterans, spouses, dependents who die on the streets, and they end up who knows where.
Right.
I know the American Legion has taken to trying to respectfully dispose of the remains. Unfortunately, this bill would have just made sure every county had a person designated
Yes.
to deal with this. I mean, it's hopefully
Yeah,
not a problem that's happening all the time, but if it happened once, it's too much. And this bill passed unanimously out of the House.
Right. It did.
It died on the Senate, on the Senate president's desk because they just ran out of time, which I'm sorry, you had a lot of time to do a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
And you couldn't get this done, which
Very disappointing.
blew my mind. And how incredibly disappointing there.
Okay, and the other one that I was referring to because was the income tax credits for firefighters, because
Yes,
we have
House Bill.
fire
4087.
departments that are being decimated because they don't have people anymore.
Right.
And this would have given them a perk,
Right.
income tax credit.
Right. So, and again, major,
A major failure, I think.
yes, and it was you co-sponsored it with Representative Kate, again a conservative Republican, and Representative Evans, a Democrat from the Salem area. You also had putting on here. There's a good list. Representative Neron, certainly a more liberal Democrat from Wilsonville.
Yeah.
This just blows my mind that when we especially when we put the vaccine mandates on our volunteers, firefighters, at least we could do is maybe give them a small income tax credit, especially when they're kind of swimming in money right now. And that didn't even make it to the floor. That went to revenue.
No, but we pulled we tried to pull that
You
to the
did.
floor at the last minute.
And I tell you, you came darn
And-
close. It was 27 to 32.
Yes,
And I would say, folks, especially folks who are listening to this from outside of District 32, take note of HB 4097 and go look who voted against it, and go ask them why, because it's unconscionable to me when we're hurting for firefighters everywhere, rural, urban, suburban, why we wouldn't give a small income tax credit on their state taxes for literally risking their lives to save their community members.
yeah, it was just crazy.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to things that make me less angry. House Bill 4118, another good bill. Representative Zika kind of continuing his march and eternal fight against Metro that you joined. It would allow for Metro to or require Metro and cities to extend their urban growth boundaries to include land that's urban reserve. And now, urban reserve, there's no urban reserve land in your district that I know of at this point. However, you have a whole lot of people who
That live
live in, yeah,
live on the coast and work in Portland.
yeah, and they do it. Some do it because they like it, but some do it because they just can't find anything anywhere else.
Right.
And folks who work in the metro area and want to live in the metro area should be able to.
Exactly, they should be. Because, bottom line is they're taking land and they're taking housing away from the people who live here.
Right.
They are. And we have such a challenge, and I spoke about this on the floor too, being so close to the coast. I mean, we've got the ocean on one side and the forest and the farmlands on the other, and how do we expand that, our accessibility to be able to have buildable land?
Right. No, I think it's also important. We talked about this a little as well. There are people who live on the coast and work in the metro area because they want to, and that's
Right.
cool. That's fine. But I can tell you firsthand, as an agent at the coast, as a real estate agent at the coast, there were people who were buying homes in Tillamook County because they couldn't afford homes in Washington County.
Yes,
They work in Hillsborough.
right.
And you know what they drive over every day is Highway 6.
Every day, Highway 6.
Yeah. So I know that was kind of a one you were not sure you're going to join on, but we talked a little bit and that made sense. 4119. Now here's one you kind of waged a personal war last year on. This would have eliminated that 3% cap on virtual charter schools.
Yes.
Right. So talk a little bit about that. This is another one you tried to pull to the floor that didn't make it. This one didn't even get a public hearing, which was really disappointing, especially since you're vice chair of education.
That was very disappointing. There is a cap of 3% on the number of children that from any school district that can attend a virtual charter school. And there have been more and more parents who feel that it is important to be able to have their children in that kind of a school. Well, if they go over the 3%, well, lo and behold, they're not allowed to. And then you get into the line where you have to approve, and you have to, what do you call it? Well, yeah. And there are hundreds of parents and children who are in this line that need to be heard as to why the parents want them in the schools. And the schools have the accessibility to be able to provide for them. But the 3% cap is it's making it very difficult for parents to have a choice about how they want to educate their children.
Last year when this was really coming to the forefront on a bill that you were trying to amend to get this cap just slightly raised, I think you tried to get it to 4%.
I tried to get it to 4%.
We asked, why is it at 3? Why 3? What's the measured number about 3? Is it money? Is it what? And nobody could tell us. It's a totally made up arbitrary number that somebody pulled out of the ground.
It is
3%. Nobody could tell us why 3%. It was really frustrating because, hey, if there's a reason that it has to be 3%, hey, let's talk about it and find out what maybe we can alter some things over here to make it feasible to make it higher. But the problem is they just didn't want it. If they could, they would totally get rid of virtual charter schools altogether. And
do you know how many children I have seen go through those virtual charter schools and become very successful?
Well, I know a lot of them.
Parents have, they have 4-H and they have FFA, and there are a lot of things that they can participate in groups in the schools. However, your parents need to be the ones who decide how it is you're going to be educated. And this really puts a roadblock up for them.
Right. And it's interesting because I think most people would agree they don't want to be in virtual schools. Most parents that I've talked to over the last couple of years were everybody was in virtual schools, hated it. But for some, they needed it. It worked really, really well. Some of those students thrived these last 2 years, maybe because of the school they were in, they were just being bullied terribly. Maybe they're dealing with social anxiety or something, some non-educational issue that makes, when you remove the social side of it out of it, it gives them the opportunity to thrive. So it was really disappointing.
And the other thing is sometimes slowing down the education and taking it in a more in an atmosphere that is how do you say, it's more accepting of the fact that you can go at your own speed to learn.
Right.
You can make greater strides at that if you are self-directed to move through that.
Right.
And I think that's part of it too.
And I think one of the things that I heard when discussing this was that, virtual charter schools have such dismal graduation rates. The problem with that metric is that when a lot of folks just do virtual charter schools for a few years and then they go back to their normal school, that student then is deemed to not have graduated, not transferred,
right,
have not graduated. So it
not
sounds
graduated.
like these virtual charter schools just have a 30 or 40% graduation rate, which isn't the case. It's the case that these kids who were in the virtual charter school at that point simply transferred to another school and graduated there. Which is really unfortunate that data is, editorial moment, intentionally skewed to make it look like,
it is, yes,
to make it look like these schools are failing. And when in reality, we don't know what the situation is with them, which is unfortunate, because I think the data would show something completely different. But this again was a bill you tried to get rid of that cap and let kind of the free market work its way, and I didn't go anywhere. So one more bill to talk about that you sponsored that did not pass, HB 4135. And I know this is drugs and how drugs affect communities are a big deal to you. It used to be back in the day, back in the days of 2020 and before, if you caught somebody with a 2 pounds or 3 pounds or 10 pounds of marijuana or cocaine, or forgive me for not knowing the standard metric of weight of these things, you were assumed to be transferring, to essentially dealing, selling, getting it to other people. In 2021, Oregon Court of Appeals said that isn't enough. You catch somebody with 15 pounds of pot, well, maybe you went to Costco and got it, just stocking up for the winter. I don't know. That's silly. But essentially they said that just finding somebody with a whole bunch of drugs isn't enough to um, charge them.
To proof to distribute.
Right. Which that's silly. Forgive me.
And that's silly.
This bill would have changed that. Bill would have made it so that
Yes.
if you're caught with that much that amount, especially, I think there was an article in the Oregonian that said that Oregon's pot harvesters have enough pot to distribute around the country this year. Totally overproduced.
Yeah, they could provide the nation with it.
Yeah. So that was unfortunate that bill died again.
But unfortunately, look at the number of people that are seeking treatment for drug-related issues. We have a dismal record at people who are trying to reverse the addictive cycle of their life, and that's another subject that we could go into on another day that would take us half the afternoon to work through.
Well, let's not do that. Let's now go on to some bills that got a lot of press, and let's talk about how you voted on them and why you voted on them that way. Let's start with 1501. Senate Bill 1501 was a kind of marketed
small woodlands.
Yeah, well, no, not the small woodlands. It was kind of the everybody.
No.
A forest pact, which would have added a whole bunch of more buffers around water sources and a whole lot of it was really advertised as a compromise. But you voted no on that bill.
I did.
You had a whole lot of people
did not feel.
Go ahead.
It was about 10-1 because, I do listen to the people who send me an email or send me a voicemail on something. And it was about 10-1 that were not in favor of this. And they were mostly small woodlands people, or people that were, associated with other folks that were small woodlands. And they did not feel that they had been adequately represented by this. And I listened to them, and I did not vote yes on this.
No, you had a whole lot of folks who supported you.
And there's
in the timber industry who wanted you to vote yes.
Oh, yes. And there's nothing stopping another legislature from doing something that would be even harder on our woodlands owners.
Right. I think that was the conversation that I had with a lot of folks, is that this could really be somewhat of a Faustian agreement where this year it looks like everybody had a nice agreement. Everybody got a little bit of everything, but there's nothing stopping the legislature next year for taking the little bit that our timber producers and our loggers and our truckers got and just taking that away. And
there's something I need to add to this too. And that is, a lot of the people who weighed in on this and sent me information. Well, there were people from the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
There were people from California. I'm going to tell you folks, I don't listen to them. They are not here. They are not living here. They are not our way of life. And so what I'm going to listen to is the people from my district who have opinions on this. And that's what I did.
And I will say, there was again, pulling down the curtain for a minute, amongst your staff and advisors, we had some pretty heated discussions about this bill.
Oh, we did.
And, it was, of course, we're all on Team Weber once we come to a decision. But I think one of the things is that I know a lot of the companies, the timber industry that supported you very heavily when you were running, supported this bill. But I think this shows that somebody can write you a check for $1 trillion. Your vote's not for sale. You're going to vote what's going to be best for your constituents. And
Exactly.
that's exactly what you did.
And I did have a lot of conversations with the big timber companies over this. Trust me, we talked a lot about it.
Right. And, they'll do what they'll do, and that's their business.
Yes.
But certainly the conversations the emails that I got from the truckers, from those small forest
Right.
owners, they just scared. I mean, they were going to see their production go down 50%. They were scared to
Right.
death of this bill. And I will say there were some people that I talked to who may come out in public and say they supported the bill. They're nervous about it. They're nervous about the bill because they know that the legislature next year or the year after that or year after that can come and take away everything
Yeah.
that they were given, but leave all the stuff that they had to give up in place. So I think that's we understand why you voted the way you did on that one, but that was a tough bill. That was a tough one. Senate Bill 1529. This started out as such a simple little bill.
This started out as giving pharmacy techs the ability to swipe someone's driver's license when they were buying pseudoephedrine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into, well, it was what you call a gut and stuff. So they took the pseudoephedrine out of there and they jammed everything else into this, including a lot of language about abortion, behavioral health issues. And I'm not saying that everything they put in there was wrong or bad. I'm just saying they used it as a vehicle to put everything else in there that they could think of, other than a tech being able to swipe the driver's license.
Well, one of the things that was in there that I think set a lot of your constituents off was giving the Oregon Health Authority
declaration.
Yeah, the Oregon Health Authority, giving them the ability to declare a state of emergency without the governor, just doing it on their own.
This was saying the governor didn't have to do it, nor the head of Oregon Health, but an additional level below that would be the person who could make a decision. So if you have 2 cases of pertussis, whooping cough, in one county, a health emergency could be declared because of that. Now, that's not to say that their information isn't valuable, but it is saying you can't have someone of that level that is not an elected person declaring a health emergency. You just can't do it.
And at least had it been an agency head, the governor could have fired the agency head. But now the governor would have to fire the agency head, hire a new agency head to fire the other person.
Yes.
Anyway, you voted yes on this. Why?
I did, because there were so many other good things in this bill, and because we got that part out of there that said it was a third party.
Right. So that was removed, as well as all the language around abortion and things like that.
Yes.
It really became a behavioral health support, making sure that insurance covers those things. So it became a pretty
health visits.
It became a pretty good bill.
It did.
It wasn't
In
perfect.
the end, it did. But it just goes to show you, sometimes you got to go through a lot in order to get something. You can start out with an initial premise of something that's going to be good, and it's not. But on the other hand, I do not like it when they decide to gut and stuff something.
Yeah, not a practice I like either. But I can tell you, folks, that happened. Representative Weber was able to go to bat because of everyone freaking out about it and sending in testimony, sending in emails, testifying at the hearings. That was able to happen because of that. So your voice is heard. Sometimes it isn't heard as much as we wish it would be. We know that, but in this case, it sure was.
Well, I was alerted to the possibility of how this was going to look. And so I got a hold of the vice chair. And at that point in time, he did not know that all of that had happened. And so it was like, there was a chain reaction after that. That was, it averted a lot of unintended consequences.
Right. So you folks did that. You folks who got a hold of Representative Weber, who then got a hold of the vice chair of the committee, you did that. So don't ever say your voice doesn't matter, because it sure does. Senate Bill 1521, another tough bill around the hiring and firing of superintendents.
Right.
You voted no on this bill. Maybe talk a little bit about it and the reason for your vote.
Well, I think that the main reason for my vote being a no was that the time frame within this bill was that they had to give someone 12 months after they decided to fire them, that they could remain on the job. And they also took away the contractual issues that come with hiring a superintendent, and didn't put them in this bill, because like one school board president said, this isn't our problem because we have a contract with our superintendent. If we decide to fire him, we still have to pay him 1 year's salary. But this bill was very short-sighted about how to deal with superintendents, and they are the only employee of the school board, and they should have the ability to hire and fire whom they like. And yes, I understand that there's an enormous amount of job openings for superintendents in the state of Oregon at this present time.
I think one of the challenges that what a lot of folks heard was the bill stopped school boards from firing school superintendents for enforcing the law,
and this was directly the result of what happened in Albany and in Newburgh.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think, and I know you and Representative Owens from the eastern part of the state certainly agreed that if somebody is going to just be enforcing the law, they shouldn't be fired. But there's a whole lot of stuff, and it isn't that bill. That part was not the controversial part. No. The controversial part was you're essentially forcing a contract negotiation, saying that if you're going to fire somebody, you got to give them a year's notice. That's a year that somebody can be in the position doing damage to the community, to the school district, just creating a toxic work environment. You put up an amendment that would have lowered that to 6 months. Even that got rejected. It was just so disappointing.
I will tell you that we were trying to come to a resolution up until the very last minute before it was voted on, because we did what is called a minority report on it and tried to work through making this better. And it came down to, they would have lowered the requirement to 9 months, but we still said 6 months, because can you imagine the stress, the strain on the whole district if you know that in 9 months even you're going to get fired?
Well, 9 months might as well be 12 months because it's a school year.
It might as well be 12 months. So anyway,
that's a whole school year.
We were not successful, but we did put up a good fight.
Right. Another one, probably the most recent one that was a real challenge, was House Bill 4002, the ag overtime bill. Before this bill passed, yeah, agriculture workers were not required to receive overtime, and there was a whole lot of reasons for that. Mostly because seasonal workers are brought in for just harvest time. This
But there's
eliminates,
different kinds of agriculture.
right?
There is agriculture involving livestock, and there's agriculture involving crops. They are two different, completely different ways that the land provides for us. And that was not recognized in this bill.
Right.
At the end, they have a grant. Well, first of all, there's tax credits, because I think that they realize that our farming community is going to be hurt by this. But a bigger issue is that our farm workers are going to be hurt, because farmers are going to find a way around this. They're going to, okay, you work 40 hours, fine, then you're done. I'll find somebody else if I need somebody for an additional 8 hours, or, for the week, or 10 hours for the week, whatever. And so they're not going to be making that amount of money that they had in the past. And that's, I think, the thing that bothers me the most is people are going to have to find ways around this, and farmers are going to suffer because of this, and the workers are going to suffer because of this. And yes, it is a good thing to be paid overtime, but not when it's going to hurt somebody. And when you're looking, we've got what, 200 farms in our district?
No, about 100. There's
I think
200 dairy farms in the state, or grade A dairy farms in the state, and about half of them are in the district.
Those farmers also provide, as a rule, not a place for their employees to live, and milk and meat, and a lot of them get a vehicle to drive, and they get their gas paid for, and they have insurance. And one farmer was telling me that he is having to pay up to $30 an hour in order to get qualified workers.
Right.
And to pay time and a half for that is going to be extremely hard for him to do.
One of the things that was really interesting, that was really one of the big defenses of the supporters, was that so many other states are doing this. But one of the things I really noticed is that none of the states, at least that I saw, and I could be wrong, none of the states are doing it in a straight 40-hour a week.
No, they are not.
Period. When you get to harvest time, or it goes up to like 60 hours a week. If anything over 60
Right.
hours
And
a week, you get overtime.
they have a time frame where they can say, okay, if you're picking cherries and we're going to be picking cherries for 3 weeks, I'm going to request that for 3 weeks I don't have to pay overtime.
Right. Or not going to have to, we'll pay overtime over 60 hours a week as opposed to 40. There were compromises that respected and understood the differences of agriculture throughout the state. And this bill, unfortunately, another good idea that is blown up and made terrible by, quite frankly, activists who don't care.
Well, there were people on that committee who had no connection with farming whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Because they live in the metro area. They have no connection with it, other than what they feel is the human factor of it.
Right. And I think that was an agreement among everybody is, number one, you wanted to make sure everybody was going to be paid a fair wage. And number two, everybody was afraid that the Bureau of Labor and Industries was going to come in and
that's the next thing that was going to happen.
Right. So
and the other thing
wanted a solution.
The other thing is the time wasn't taken to evaluate what has happened in California regarding that law? Because already farmers in farm workers in California are saying, I'm having to get a second job. I can only work 40 hours on this job, so I'm going to have to get another job. The price of gas is going up. This is going up. I've got to get another job. So they're working 2 and 3 jobs in order to make what they made on one. And we also have to look at what Washington had done and how that's going to impact that state and those workers. And the model program that would have done us the most good is if we would have passed one that was similar to Colorado. Colorado took a lot of that into consideration. And we would have done well to have adopted more of what they had passed into law.
Yeah, and there were a lot of tears on the floor that day. I joke and say no crying in politics, but it was a heated discussion with a lot of personal investment. Yeah. I think what came out is not going to be best for anyone. I mean, everybody's going to lose in this one. So maybe a few politicians who get to put it in their flyers for re-election. Really disappointing that you had an opportunity to do something that was going to be a win for everybody, a bipartisan victory, something like you had that they have in Colorado, and it was kicked down. That whole idea was kicked down the road because
the thing that was really disconcerting to me was one legislator said, well, we don't know what's going to happen until something like this passes.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Honey, you better know what's going to happen when you pass something like this.
Yeah, I believe we heard that before. So interesting session, Representative. Let's talk about some good news. Usually we talk about this, but we didn't talk about it beforehand. We're all going to take a break. I think that's going to be the good news for today. You're going to go on a little trip with some family. I'm just not going to work for a little while. And Katie is as well.
Katie's going to have a surgery.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a week off.
Yeah. So what I would just say to everybody, usually we try really, really hard to answer your emails within 24 to 48 hours if you reach out or if you make a phone call. We would just ask that unless it's an emergency, we're still monitoring emails, still monitoring phone calls, but just know that unless there's a real big emergency, chances are we're not going to get back to you until probably another week or 10 days. It was a lot of times we started at 6 or 7 in the morning and went well into 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. So we're tired.
Can I add one other thing?
Please do.
And I've said this before, folks, we'd love to get a hold of you when you come to us with your questions and your concerns. But if you don't put a telephone number down there or some way that we can reach you, we have a really difficult time figuring out who you are, where you are, and how we can get a hold of you. And so we all would really appreciate it if you would put your contact information in when you write to us with a concern. Please.
It would also mean a lot if you would put your address in, because I will say we literally, especially during session, we get thousands of emails a day. If you put your address in, we will see it and know that you're a constituent. And if you're a constituent, you get first priority. If you live in House District 32, you rise to the top.
Yes.
If you don't, it's a lot of work to put your name through a voter registration system to figure out whether you actually are a constituent when we're getting thousands of emails. So if you could put that in. Also keep in mind that when you do email Representative Weber, especially if you email Representative Weber, or if you leave a voicemail on her state phone, that becomes public record. So if you want to talk about a child custody case or something that you don't want to see on the front page of the Oregonian, it's best to say, hey, I'm struggling with a real big issue here regarding the custody or someone who's in prison who needs help. Could you please give me a call? My phone number is 503, whatever.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's probably not only a lot easier for us, but probably a lot more respectful of your privacy to do that.
Yes.
So Representative, after our break, you'll be back out in the community. As you see, you are home, so you're not in Salem anymore. So hopefully you'll be able to get out there, especially with COVID waning.
Yes. I've also had people already stopping me and giving me some new issues that we need to start working on.
And that's great, because that's you get your ideas of how to introduce bills and what bills to introduce by people stopping you on the street and say, hey, I got this issue. Can we address this? Talking to you, seeing you on the street and say, I've run into this. What do you think about what can we do to change this law? No guarantees it's going to pass, but we can at least work on it and put it forward. So if you've got ideas, you've got concerns, send them our way. We can start working on them now so that when we come back, God willing, and the voters willing, come back in 2023, we can go ahead and already have the ideas flushed out,
Right.
and we can just file bills and boom, 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 and move forward. So,
Right, because we need to know by the 23rd of September, the new dates came out as to when we're going to start putting these concepts forward to the legal department so they can flush out, what the bill should look like, and we can, go back and forth and say, no, that's not what I want. Yes, that's what I want.
right.
So
That also avoids unintended consequences, because there's been a few times you guys have passed a bill that you've had to come around and fix because you didn't realize what you had done. We try to avoid that, but when we are rushed, that makes, when you rush things, you make mistakes. So if we were able to get these concepts in the fall, makes it a heck of a lot easier to have a good bill that's going to come forward in the winter in January. So, Representative, anything else before we wrap this up? It's been a long one, but it's important stuff.
No, but spring vacation is coming.
Yes,
21st of the month for a week here in Oregon. And I just want to wish you all the best. Be safe, have fun, enjoy our beaches. We'll be thinking about you. We'll be looking for you. We know you're coming, and we'll welcome you with open arms.
Yes, we will. And we hope you will come with open wallets, for those of you who are not residents of House District 32, or at least not of the coast. So.
And remember, we have the best milk and ice cream in the state.
Well, of course. Don't tell those Southern Oregon people, those Umpqua people, they're just nuts.
Yeah.
All right, Representative, we'll let you
Thank
have the rest of your Sunday back. Thank you much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful spring break, and we'll see you soon.
And I do too. Thank you. We'll be seeing you soon. Thanks, Adam, for the opportunity.
Always a pleasure.